Here was last week's Formula One winner Nelson Piquet. As the '86 season begins its final quarter today in Austria, the Williams team fortunes like a harvest moon are waxing. Their victory gain grew to 4 consecutive last week, with this pass when both Piquet and fellow countryman Ayrton Senna took each other to the limit. For the next opportunity at passing for the lead, both drivers would test the other past the limit. But judge for yourself. Nobody is forced off pavement and nary a wheel is touched. But remember, after all, this is the battle for the World's Driving Championship. Today, the Austrian Grand Prix. A week ago, we in the Formula One fraternity were in Hungary for the first Grand Prix in the modern era behind the so-called Iron Curtain. Well, just a short ride down the beautiful blue Danube, a little bit overland, you come to Zeltwig, Austria, a neighboring country for the site of this week's Formula One race. It's a pastoral setting. We're in a valley here at the Zeltwig, Austria track, the Österreich-Ring. And we're close to some rural areas as well as some populated areas, but it's a very exciting place to be, and it's a very fast racetrack. I'm Larry Newberg, John Bizignano joining me today. The pass last week, do you think there was a villain and a victim?
Well, I think there are two very hard drivers going for the same piece of territory. A lot of the experts, Larry, thought that Senna was pushing a little bit too hard to the left for Piquet's safety. But actually, after it was reviewed by people, especially in slow motion in a few studios, and both drivers actually admitted that it was a pretty clean pass.
Well, Ayrton certainly did hold his line on that particular case, and afterwards, he had a very matter-of-fact way of looking at the incident, and by and large, he was pretty satisfied with his fellow countryman.
I knew he was coming. My tires were graining, and I lost the grip. And I knew I had to wait a few laps until they would clean again so I could push like it happened at the beginning of the race. But he was coming. And both times he came on straight line with more speed and just took me. He nearly went off at the end of the straight. He slid off. I thought he was going to lose, but then he controlled. And so he won. But it was a good race.
Actually, you can see that the most difficult type of car to pass is one that's in the middle of the straightaway. Piquet had tried it on the right before. He knew he couldn't do it, so he was determined to get by on the left. Senna did squeeze him a little bit, but he did leave him a full car width, and Piquet very late on the braking, actually locking up that rear brake and throwing the Formula One car sideways. That's something you don't see too often in Formula One these days, but he did collect it up and was able to bring the car back into the victory circle, actually.
A couple of real artists, to be sure. This week, big surprise. A couple of names you probably wouldn't expect on the front row.
Well, Teo Fabi. This is his second Formula One pole position, and he's very pleased to do it. Teo Fabi driving the Benetton car. His teammate actually is from Austria, and the only Austrian in this Grand Prix, Gerhard Berger, which is very good for the local crowd. What's done it for him is the BMW, very powerful, 1,000 horsepower to 1,500cc engine, and also the Pirelli tires. Pirelli tires working very well under warm conditions. The only race that Pirelli has ever really won has been in the Circuit Paul Ricard, about 85 degrees there that time when Nelson Piquet won, and that's almost the exact same weather conditions this weekend in Austria.
Well, BMW also powers the Brabham cars, and of course that organization is headed up by Bernie Ecclestone, who's in the unique position of not only running Formula One, but also having his own team. He also has a unique way of sometimes answering a question with yet another question.
There's a great deal of rumors going around, many rumors going around about your situation next year with BMW and the Force team and so forth. Can you enlighten us on that situation?
Yeah, there's a great deal of rumors going around about the situation with BMW and the Force team and everything. Yeah.
Yes, but what is your involvement in those rumors, really, Bernie? I mean,
I just keep listening to the rumors, and maybe I'll find something to do when I sort them all out.
Will you have BMW engines next year?
I'm just waiting at the moment to decide on which of the rumors is going to be the right one.
John, he really ought to run for Congress.
Well, in England, he would make a very good Margaret Thatcher on answering questions, actually. But Bernie, he has to keep his cards close to his chest like that. There are so many people out there ready to take advantage of any information that he may be able to give away too soon. Our spies in Zeltwig in Austria this weekend say that Bernie is still being very quiet. Everything should break loose in Monza in 2 weeks' time. So we look for an awful lot of information coming out of the Italian Grand Prix.
Well, Obviously, we are not sitting high above the Österreich Ring in Austria, and unfortunately, we were unable to get over there, not because of something that we wanted to do, but the Austrian officials just were unable to assure us that the technical facilities would be there to assure us a tremendous broadcast back to the States. We wanted to bring this race to you. We wanted you to be able to hear it, which is something we knew had been a problem in some races in the past. So here we are in the studio in Bristol, Connecticut, and we will be calling the race live for you just as you see it coming down the line from Austria. The Österreich Ring. Today's Formula One race is being brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radials, built for you to take on the road. And by MasterCard, MasterCard International, master the possibilities. One of the fastest circuits on the Formula One trail, the 1986 Austrian Grand Prix. Stay with us as we bring you today's race from the Österreich Ring. The Österreich Ring, 3.7 miles of an unleashed tiger of a racetrack. This is a tough place. The grid somewhat surprising, although the people in the first two positions have been basically on the cusp of notoriety and at the very top or near the top all season long in terms of the contest for speed. This racetrack is in somewhat of a pastoral setting, as you saw in the opening of the show, but we're at a place where a lot of people like to attend the track. On the pole is Teo Fabi, the Italian in the Benetton BMW-powered car, went better than 158 miles an hour. Gerhard Berger, the home countryman Austria, he is second. Keke Rosberg, who announced his retirement from racing, or at least temporarily, earlier, is third, flanked by Riccardo Patrese, the Italian in another Brabham BMW shod car. In fifth is Alain Prost, the reigning world's champion, and he is flanked on his outside by Nigel Mansell, the Briton who has won 4 times in 1986. He is driving the Williams Honda. In seventh is last week's winner, Nelson Piquet. The Brazilian, of course, is the teammate of Nigel Mansell. He qualified at about 1 minute and 24 seconds around this course. And Ayrton Senna, Mr. Speed of this year, is only 8th today in his Renault-powered Lotus. 9th is Michele Alboreto. Oftentimes, the Italian is a favorite, but it's been a tough year. And 10th is Derek Warwick. The Britainer has also done well, making 4 BMW shod cars in the top 10. In 11th and 12th is Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman in the Ligier Renault. In 12th is René Arnoux, another Frenchman, and the other Ligier. 13th and 14th, Patrick Tambay in the U.S. entered Lola Ford, and Johansson in the Ferrari, the Swede. 15th and 16th, Johnny Dumfries, Ayrton Senna's teammate, and Alan Jones, the teammate, of course, to Patrick Tambay. 17th and 18th, Martin Brundle and Terry Boutsen. And in 19th and 20th, Sandro Nannini from Italy and Philippe Straff from France. In 21st and 22nd, Christian Danner from Britain, Jonathan Palmer from Britain, I beg your pardon, and Christian Danner, the West German, in the Aero BMW. 23rd and 24th, Andrea De Cesris, the Italian in the Minardi, and Ub Rottengatter from the Netherlands. And at the end of the rows of today's race, 25th position, Piercarlo Genzani, and the Canadian Alan Berg starting last, bringing up the tail of this field.
We've had a little bit of drama here in the warm-up, actually, for qualifying at the beginning of this race, and it's unfortunate Derek Warwick will not be starting. He had a tremendous accident in a qualifying accident 2 days ago. That car was not able to be repaired for the race, and now his spare car, unfortunately, has developed gearbox problems. So Derek Warwick at this moment will not be taking the flag from the starting grid. We do not know if they're going to try and get him out of the pit lane, which means he would be joining the field after they have crossed the pit exit.
A tremendously fast circuit, as we alluded to a few moments ago. The speeds here are easily in excess of 150 mile an hour average. The top speed is well in excess of 180 miles an hour. There is the pole sitter Teo Fabi, his teammate Gerhard Berger, Keke Rosberg. There is Riccardo Patrese. There you see Nigel Mansell, who has really been the scourge of Formula One racing this year. His teammate, last week's winner, Nelson Piquet. You see the Ligier's going by. The Ferrari is Stefan Johansson. There is Alan Jones, the Austrian, the former world's champion, and the rest of the field taking its respective position or headed toward it on the grid.
Now, Larry, one thing we have to be very careful here at the Österreichring is the start. For the past several years, there have been accidents on the start. I can remember 2 races that were delayed because of these accidents were so severe, including last year's race. It's straight up a very severe hill and then a sharp turn into a chicane, both right, left, and back right again. So the start here in the Österreichring historically has eliminated several cars. So let's look for a clean start. Also, let's see if the Pirelli shod cars up front can maintain their qualifying speed on the Pirelli race rubber. There is quite a bit of difference between Pirelli race rubber and Pirelli qualifying rubber. As the same for Goodyear. So let's see if the Benetton cars up front there on that front row can go ahead and maintain their speed. And here they are lining up for the start.
That first chicane, we're just moments and away from the start, is somewhat of an unusual one because it's a right-hander, actually. It's not a straight line chicane. When the final cars at the top right-hand side of your screen get in position, we are moments away then from the start of the 1986 Austrian Grand Prix.
What you're going to see here, the starting lights will be showing up in the corner of the screen. You'll see a yellow light come on, and then 4 to 7 seconds later, the green will come on, and that will be the start. The cars are sitting there still now, waiting, getting all the RPMs up. The front people have to wait for the entire grid to set. It looks like they're holding quite a long time, and there is the start. We did not see the starting lights, but they are away very slowly back there on Petresi, dropping back as I see that Benetton's got away very clearly, and McLarens are in good chase up that hill, and let's see them breaking into the first corner.
Nelson Piquet getting a good jump also. Both of the Williams are in line. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. As John mentioned, Tracy did not get away through that first chicane, the Niki Lauda chicane, and the Benettons, somewhat of a surprise this week, are holding their own.
Tremendous start. That BMW power, getting all that power down on the road with the Benetton chassis, and they're pulling away, actually. The McLarens have been very successful at this track. Last year, Prost winning with quite a decisive win. And this is a circuit that's very hard on equipment. The sparks flying up there from the skid plates underneath the cars. You can see both Williams cars going by, and a little bit of trying in there was Keke Rosberg trying to get across past the Williams cars. Right now, Nigel Mansell is in front of his teammate Nelson Piquet as we enter one of the fastest sections in motor racing around the Bosch turn. The drivers can get over 2.5 G-forces going laterally on them through the Bosch corner.
There is the leader, Gerhard Berger. He out-dragged his teammate Theo Fabi here on the opening lap of the 1986 Austrian Grand Prix. And Berger, who has been close on a number of occasions in 1986, is leading this race and looks like he will be leading lap number 1.
Well, Gerhard Berger, this has to be one of his biggest thrills in Formula One so far. His home crowd. Of course, Niki Lauda last year, this is where he announced his second retirement of Formula One. Niki last year in Austria. So here we have an Austrian leading the Austrian Grand Prix, and I'm sure that's a great bit of pride for everyone as both these cars go up. There's so much competition between teammates as all the cars come up this hill. It's one of the steepest climbs in Formula One, but actually by the time they get to the start of that hill, they're going well over 180 miles. And Stefan Johansson takes a look on the inside of the Ford-powered Haas car, but right now, I'll tell you, it's the two Benettons that seem to be pulling away. That BMW power and the Pirelli tires seem to be the right combination in this 85-degree heat in Österreich.
Now remember that fuel has been a question all year long in Formula One. Will it rear its head here? Here comes Prost. There is Mansell. That's third and fourth. The two Benetton cars. Alain Prost checking his mirrors. And there's Mansell trying to put a move on Alain. We'll see if he got it or not. There goes Berger going by, followed by Fabi. And Fabi has not let him get away as they go around this rapidly quick course. Things will happen very quickly here. We told you the average speeds in the excess of 158 miles an hour in qualifying. Sure to be well in excess of 150 for the race itself.
Of course, teammates, as I said before, a great deal of competition, but if someone starts coming up behind them, I'm sure they will try and help each other as much as possible, but both these people want points. They have scored no points, or very few points so far this year. The team has done very well in qualifying, but they have not been able to match their qualifying success in the race. So here we have the two Benetton cars just pulling away. Benetton, this used to be the Toleman team, and the sponsor actually on the inside. We have Fabi trying on the brakes, but right up to the last second, and then the Austrian driver takes it away from him. There's certainly no team rules going on here as far as the not being able to race one another, for sure. As we're saying, the reason this team is called the Benetton team is because Benetton actually bought the Toleman team, and the team is named correctly the Benetton team.
shades of a week ago as you see the first three, Berger and Fabi, obviously, and Alain Prost. Nigel Mansell, who tried to put one on Alain the last lap, just did not quite get by. Piquet, by the way, is fifth. They're the leaders once again. It looks like Riccardo Patrici's day, unfortunately, is going to end. A great qualifying performance. There you see Riccardo rolling rather quietly back to his pit boxes, they are called in Europe. Not pit areas or pit stalls as we here in America, but pit box is a very commonly accepted term. But John, it's got to be a big disappointment for the Brabham cars. It looked like this might be a good weekend, and then things began to fall apart with that crash Friday, and now today the early retirement.
Well, Larry, it's a double disappointment. If Warwick was not able to start from the pit lane, which we don't think he did, we have both Brabhams out of the race within the first 2 laps, especially after them doing so well in qualifying. But up front, here are the boys that are doing very well. Fabi from Italy, who many of you race fans in the States will remember that he was an Indianapolis driver, a very successful one, scoring the pole position there in 1983, I believe it was. Larry on pole position and doing very well that following season, almost winning the championship at one point. But right now, he is right up the exhaust of his teammate, especially on braking. But these cars are so evenly matched that I think you're going to see one heck of a battle. The Austrian will not want to give away that lead in his home territory.
The Bennington cars dominate early here in the Austrian Grand Prix. Something a little different this week, maybe a little bit of trivia before each break. How many current drivers, for instance, have won Formula One races? How many current drivers have won career Formula One races? All we hear about anymore are the big 4. Well, believe it or not, there are a total of 12 in their career who have won races. And John, is something happening out there, do you suppose?
Well, while we were in that break, we certainly saw Fabi slowing. We don't know if he has a huge problem. It's not that Berger's pulling away from him, because we can see the McLaren and the Williams catching him up quite easily. So we can definitely see that Fabi does have a problem. We have no indication of what it is at this particular point. We did see some smoke trailing out of his motor on a downshift, but that did look nothing terribly unusual to me. But let's look at him closely and see if we can pick it up as a braking problem or possibly a gearbox problem. There he is, going by the McLaren Mansell, but they certainly have caught him, and Prost must have him in his sights for a pass within the next couple laps.
You never know what is up the sleeve of Alain Prost. Nobody in Formula One racing has shown himself to be the peer of Alain Prost when it comes to making a car finish a race. There's the leader, Berger, again. Here comes Fabi. You can see he's still got at least a hills difference between himself and Prost. There is Alain. There is Mansell running 4th. In 5th at this position, at this juncture, I believe, is Nelson Piquet, Mansell's teammate. And Mansell and Piquet have kind of gone back and forth the last 3 races. It seems like one would be superior one week, and then of recent, Nelson Piquet has been putting it on his teammate Nigel Mansell. But with the speed and the consistency that those Williams cars have shown this year, boy, you just can never count them out. And as we saw a couple of races ago, even when it comes down to a fuel economy race, they seem to have the advantage.
Well, the advantage in Formula One changes from lap to lap under these circumstances. You mentioned earlier the fuel situation. I don't believe Berger would be allowed to run any higher boost than Fabi is running. I'm sure team orders are to keep the boost exactly the same amount, especially when the computer is telling both drivers exactly what to do relative to fuel use. You know, right now, Fabi is running quite strong. We did not see him make any mistake on circuit while we were in that break, but possibly, Larry, he did make a slight mistake and lost that ground under driver error, because at the moment, I think he is pulling away from the McLaren.
For a second there, from that shot high in the helicopter above the course, it looked like that Alain Prost had a problem, but he just took a different line than what Nigel Mansell did around that curve the last time.
Of course, right now, Prost has to be protecting his rear end, as they say in Formula One. He has one of the most aggressive Formula One drivers behind him, and he's trying to catch Fabi at the same time. So in the rocking chair there, he does not have an easy job. He knows that Nigel Mansell will take full advantage of the slightest mistake that he can make, and Nigel actually hitting a curve there, coming out of that quick chicane and going up through these beautiful green, lush hills in Austria. This is certainly aesthetically one of the most wonderful circuits in Formula One, and it's always been a circuit where if there is a bit of relaxed atmosphere amongst the great competitors, the mountains seem to work a bit of magic. Everyone has a bit of a smile on their face, but right at the moment, he's looking in his mirrors. As you can see, Berger and Prost, there is a 6.4-second difference from our Olivetti computer tells us, and that in Formula One is not very much time whatsoever.
Johnny Dumfries, Ayrton Senna's teammate, whom we have not seen, surprisingly. Senna, that is, up near the front, has had to make a pit stop early here in the race, certainly on schedule. There is your leader, Gerhard Berger. You see his best finish of 1986. Best finish was a third place. Dumfries had to change a wing on the very first lap, and Riccardo Patrese, as was documented for you by Austrian TV, came in early. He had a turbo fire, and he is officially eliminated from today's Grand Prix.
Might make a note here that Berger, the young Austrian, had a tremendous road car accident last December going through the Alps and turned his BMW upside down several times and was actually in critical condition in intensive care on the highly danger list relative to his survival of that road accident, and his tremendous good shape and health and physical condition brought him through that. Few other people would have lived through the horrifying accident and the recovery period, but he is, as you can see, fully recovered and now leading the Austrian Grand Prix in the same country where he had that horrifying road accident.
The big question here, as we continue to watch third and fourth position, Alain Prost again is running in third. Nigel Mansell is fourth. They seem to be putting a distance between themselves and everybody else. Nobody is in the picture, but the big question is, can those Benetton cars finish? It has been a problem, particularly of recent. John, in the early part of the season, the first three races, the Benetton cars looked like they were ready to move into that first echelon. But in the last 6 or 7 races, I think Fabi has not finished any one, and Berger only finished one, and that was as a wounded duck.
Well, exactly. The team has been working extremely hard. As I said earlier, they have not been able to match the qualifying success during the race. Fabi is in 12th in the World Championship with only 2 points. Gerhard Berger is in 9th position with 6 points. So they have not had the on-track success that the team has deserved. A tremendous amount of money being invested. The rumor is over $12 million to run those two teams, and an awful lot of extra design work, extra testing going in to try and making them run well. What's in my mind are, how are those Pirelli tires holding up? Can they run this fast without blistering those Pirellis? Prost is so clever and Mansell is so clever that they might just go ahead and let the Benetton cars run for it. Go ahead, let them burn up their tires, let them burn up their engine, and see what happens. And into the pits we have Ayrton Senna locking up a brake. Speaking of tires, these are 4 Goodyear tires going on here very quickly. We have Peter Warr there trying to keep Ayrton cool. We have a problem on the left rear. All hands up. Senna out of the pits, but it's certainly very early, a 10.3-second pit stop, but very early on in the race, and we did not see Ayrton anywhere in the first few laps, so he may have come in and decided to change those tires for a different combination.
John, they have been scrambling around all weekend long, even as late as this morning in that final practice session, which should really be a tune-up on the setup that you have decided upon as a result of practice and qualifying all weekend long. They were still scrambling. They couldn't decide which tires to go with, and obviously they either changed their mind or didn't like the decision that they made following this practice morning session. The Austrian Grand Prix being headed up by the Benettons. Nestled among the Styrian Mountains, significant European foothills, I guess we would say that here in the States, but that eventually lead on to the Alps, and as John Visignano mentioned to you a few minutes ago, one of the most beautiful settings for a Formula One race around the world. It's a place that all the teams and competitors like to come. It's a relatively short week. You just hop on down the Danube and go across land a little bit. You come from Hungary in this particular case and go to the Austrian race, but John, it seems to me like this is what Formula One racing is all about. This is kind of like it should be, a nice fast track, nice setting, lots of trees.
Exactly. Well, Formula One goes all the way from the hardcore city settings of Detroit and Monte Carlo into the foot of the Austrian Alps. You know, the track altitude is not that high. It's only around 1,800 feet to this Colorado boy. Those hills are only hills, not mountains.
Hey, if you're from the Great Lakes, John, that's high.
That's true. Well, you know, Breckenridge is 10,000 feet, so to me it's just a foothill. But then the Alps go up from there all the way up to 3,000 meters, or a good 5, 6, even 7,000 feet, the tops of the mountains there. The ski areas are a little bit further to the west on the Austrian-Swiss border around St. Anton and so forth. But right now, you cannot miss the fact that the Austrian driver, Berger, is leading this race, and we can't help feel that the Austrian television is going to concentrate on him a little bit as they come around the slower car of the Haas. We have the Lotus back in the pits again. We can't tell exactly which one it is because we can't see the driver or the number, but there's definitely one of the John Player Lotuses back in the pit, and it looked something more serious than just tires, since they were holding up that longest piece of bodywork in Formula One that only weighs several pounds. But the Gerhard Berger, driving around this circuit, he's driven every type of race car imaginable here on the Österreichring, everything from Formula Fords to Formula 3s to Formula 2s, and he's certainly the protege of Niki Lauda, and all the Austrians are hoping that he has the same success.
Well, one of the Tyrrells has been lapped, and surprisingly also has that car right there, Patrick Tambay, being put a lap down by the two front runners. That was Teo Fabi just going by. There is Patrick, who qualified so well, ran well early in the race last week, had a problem, had to pit. Was actually off course, I think, at one point, which really put him at a big deficit. He lost a lap and finished in the top 10, but not in the points position that he really expected to get. John, the performance of the Benetton cars, I got to tell you, I'm surprised. I did not think they were going to be able to sustain their position of dominance even this long.
I'm not only surprised, I'm very impressed. But the chassis have been set up all year long for the faster circuits. They went to Silverstone, England, which is equally as fast as the Österreichring. They went there to do some testing to get the last single ounce of straight line speed out of these cars. But ironically, here you have two BMW-powered cars in this race, leading it 1 and 2, and BMW is saying that they are pulling out of Formula One. We have one of the Tyrrell cars coming into the pits very slowly. It's the Frenchman Philippe Streff with the Data General car. They announced this weekend that next year they will have an incredibly revolutionary design, totally, well, as they say in the press release, the Data General press release, totally designed using Data General computers. So I certainly have to see what kind of a car a computer punches out relative to Formula One design. But back on the track, of course, the cameraman, the Austrian cameraman, following the local boy, making good.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, I mean, the local camera always follows the local driver, but in this case, it may well be warranted, because Gerhard Berger may be en route. It's still too early to speculate. There you see the first 6 briefly, to his first Formula One win ever. Both he and Fabi have shown the potential from time to time of winning a Formula One race, but neither one of them have ever gotten it done. John, you mentioned Teo's tremendous performance in 1983 at the Indianapolis 500, a race he unfortunately prematurely dropped out of because of a very minor mistake in the pit area. But he went on that season to dominate kart IndyCar racing, winning something like 4 times and just missing out on the points championship. And I think the primary reason for that, we're now back into the Lotus pits. Still not possible to see who it is.
Johnny Dumfries. I can just catch his helmet there on the right.
Okay.
And your leaderboard: Berger, Fabi, Prost, Mansell, Piquet. Those first 5 drivers, all within only a few seconds of one another. It looks like a great deal of distance here at the Österreichring, but you have to remember that at 200 miles an hour, you're covering 100 yards, the length of a football field, every second. So they might be 200 yards, 300 yards apart, but that's only relative to 2 or 3 seconds.
Teo Fabi has turned in the fastest lap of anybody so far today. His lap number 9, which is a couple of laps ago, was the quickest so far. He is yet to have had the quickest lap at any Formula One race so far this year. That distinction has been almost jealously guarded among 3 or 4 people. Matter of fact, just 3 people, despite the fact there have been the big 4 who've been winning all the races this year in terms of the fastest lap of the race. There is Teo Fabi running in second. He is following his teammate, that man right there, Gerhard Berger. Still early on in the Austrian Grand Prix, but at these speeds, things happen very, very fast. out of power now. Brundle has come to a stop out on course, and it looks like a lot of confusion there, but that's only safety equipment. I do not believe that any crash was involved. No, that's just a worker station. Martin Brundle, you see him out there, that's the helmeted man standing, the white helmet, standing aside his Tyrrell Renault race car, and Martin Brundle is out of another one.
Too bad. Martin did well in Hungary, scoring some points for Ken Tyrrell's Data General team, and he was certainly hoping to add to those points here in Austria. Larry, just very quickly, we should mention that a very strange thing happened in the first day of qualifying and had an awful lot to do with why Pirelli did so well. Patrick Tambay was circling around the circuit at his speeds in a Ford-powered Lola, and he saw the left rear tire of Derek Warwick actually explode right in front of him, taking him off the track. And of course, Derek Warwick went into the guardrail at well over 200 miles an hour. He survived the crash with absolutely no injuries whatsoever, but the Pirelli shod car was then withdrawn, obviously due to the problems that were sustained in the accident. And Pirelli took all those type of compounds, that design of compounds, away from the other competitors. So the tire that they thought was going to be the quickest tire here in the Österreich Ring was actually withdrawn by Pirelli because of Warwick's accident. They went to what they thought was the slower compound, and all of a sudden their cars were doing 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker in qualifying. So even the best designs and testing of mice and men and computers cannot match what actually physically happens on the circuit. So the reason that Pirelli did so well with these qualifiers, 3 cars of the first 4, was due to an accident like Derek Warwick.
You're watching the only real contest in the top 10. Nigel Mansell looks like he is beginning to creep up in Alain Prost. Now, we'll watch for Nigel to move around as they come around to the front stretch. This might be the best opportunity to get around, but Prost really puts his foot to the floor. There goes Nigel looking to the inside. We've seen him do that the last 4 or 5 laps, and just not quite enough emphasis to get around Alain Prost. You wonder what's going on in both of these people's minds. The man who really has to have the wheels grinding, John, I believe must be Mansell. You have the feeling always that Alain knows exactly what he wants to do. He doesn't think about it. He does not have to concentrate about it, but Mansell right now, the onus is on him. What's going on in Alain's mind? How do I get by? I think I'm faster, but I just can't seem to find the right place on the track.
Well, of course, here, let's look at this replay. I'm sure we have something coming up here with one of the Minardis that looks like. We're going to have a bit of a Nannini show here, and he does lose it.
Yes, he does.
He's losing it at a very high speed. He's lost the left rear corner. Something had broken there. It certainly let go. A little bit of injustice there to Nannini, saying that he lost it. It's hard to control a race car at 160, 70 miles an hour up into the weeds there. The Austrians depend on a cornfield to slow their race cars down rather than a little early harvest going on there.
I talked about that Harvest Moon in the open. That seems to fit right in there. But I'll tell you what, that's a heck of a lot better than going into a barrier, isn't it?
Well, you know, you don't have to worry about a catch fence post hitting you on the helmet there, but certainly the popcorn is warming up in that field at the moment.
Zandro Nannini, whom a lot of people, John, are, boy, Bobby's getting close, isn't he? A lot of people say that Nannini is a good racer, and that this car and the setting that he's had this year has not really given him an opportunity to show his true potential. So perhaps somebody to keep your eyes on for the future.
Well, of course, he did very well in Formula 3. He's a young driver with all the heart of the greatest lions out there. As you see a picture of Gerhard Berger, the Austrian. But Nannini has not really had a facility this year to match his talents, and we look for great things from him in the future. But look at Fabi. Look at Fabi. He's just setting his teammate up. He's right up his exhaust. He's going around the outside, having a good look on the brakes, and he's through. Fabi, the Italian, coming through his teammate somewhat easily, I would say. I don't into the Bosch turn. I don't think Gerhard, certainly let him by. Gerhard's coming by now.
Tail is slowing. He is definitely slowing. Tail Fabi with all kinds of problems here right after taking the lead. What a misfortune. I mean, it's tough enough to drop out of a race, but when it happens just after you finally take the lead, what could cause something like that to happen?
Well, you know, he dropped back once before in somewhat the same situation. Now he's back up to speed. It could be a gear selection problem or possibly a fuel pickup. That Bosch turn, as I see, he has his hand up. He is slowing. There is a problem. But that Bosch turn plays havoc with all types of systems on these cars due to the lateral forces that are put on it, especially fuel. It looks like Bobby, after a moment of glory, is going to have to park it or limp back to the pits.
And here comes Mansell trying to get around Prost. Let's see how they play it. Mansell looks to the inside. Allen has got great acceleration out of that final turn, the pit turn going down to the first chicane after the long front stretch, and once again, Allen is able to hold back the flying Brit.
Well, I tell you know, the Honda Power supposedly has had the advantage all year long, but you saw them accelerating down the pit straightaway, and once the Power got to the ground, as we see one of the West Zach Speed cars with its Hoop Rottengatter, his right rear tire certainly having a great problem there, but I'll tell you, that tag Porsche McLaren just out-accelerated the Honda Williams.
Everybody talks about the Big Four, but who among this group has the most career wins in Formula One? Derek Warwick, Alan Jones, Keke Rosberg, Riccardo Patrese, or Patrick Tambay? And the answer might surprise you. We're watching the Austrian Grand Prix, and we'll be back.
So we may see 2 stops here, Larry.
You know, this is the first year that either Benetton car has led this far into the race. There have been 1 or 2 races earlier this year, particularly this man, Berger, was up near the front, but it was well before the first round of the scheduled pit stops. And with that probability coming up, it seems like this might be the first time with the 1986 season that the Benetton pit crew has really had to perform under pressure. That element is evolving right now, as well as the element of the pressure in front of the home crowd on this man, Gerhard Berger. How about the oldest and youngest Formula One drivers who are currently in the league? Well, we'll have that answer right after we come back to Austria. 21st of November of 1943. He's 43 this year, although Keke Rosberg. And we have Keke Rosberg into the pits right now. Another of the leaders. Back to that story in just a minute.
Keke Rosberg with the McLaren team, of course, always looking for a very quick pit stop. Keke announcing his, not retirement, as he corrected me when I asked him, but only his stopping from racing. I don't still understand the exact difference of that, but still, Keke Rosberg intending to be very much involved in Formula One on a promotional side of things after this season.
Well, it's like when Lauda quit last year. Yeah, but you never know. But you have the feeling this one might be permanent. Back to the story about the oldest and the youngest. There are 3 other drivers, make up 4 of the drivers who were also born in the 40s. They're the only 4. Keke Rosberg, Alan Jones, Patrick Tambay, and René Arnoux. The youngest, the newest of the Formula One fraternity, Canadian Alan Berg. He was born on the 1st of August of 1961. He just turned 25.
Back a few years ago, you would see drivers in their 20s in Formula One. Stefan Johansson was in his very early 20s, 20 or 21, when he started driving these Formula One cars, the ultimate of international motorsports. Also, another very young driver was Nigel Mansell, coming up through go-kart ranks in Formula 3 and so forth, with Colin Chapman bringing him into the Formula One ranks at this particular Grand Prix. It had to be 5 or 6 years ago now, and I can remember when that young driver was also looking for someone to help pay his hotel bill. As the USF&G Barclay Arrows car, this is the A8 in the pit. The car is back down on the ground. Unfortunately, they didn't get a clock on that car, but that is Christian Danner, the German driver, going out of the pits. So it looks like the Goodyear teams are starting their routine pit stops. Danner still in the A8, Thierry Boutsen driving the A9. The A9 in most of qualifying and practice was up around, in practice, not qualifying, was up around the 12th, 11th, 13th positions, but just when it came time for qualifying, they blew the engine with a high boost situation, and Terry actually had to qualify in the A8. So the A9 is starting to make some progress. Jackie Oliver has hired Gordon Kupak, the famous ex-McLaren designer of years past, to help sort out that A9 car.
The situation and a reflection. The situation is, how long will the Benetton team go before the Pirelli engineers say come in? Well, we're now getting the answer. The perspective is, how long will the BMW power plant and this Benetton chassis continue? John, let's follow this pit stop. Take it.
Well, the first thing he did was lock up the brakes, so he's very eager. You don't have to worry about flat stops because they're putting on all new ones. You see the team manager there saying, hold on to the brakes. The driver must hold the brakes while the tires are being changed. He's back down, keep the RPMs. God, he didn't stop the engine, did he? They're cleaning out things from the radiators, and now they're working up on the nose. This is what's been killing the Benetton team all year long. The back of the car, bodywork is coming off. What a sad, sad moment for the entire team. Don't lose your grip now, guys. Think straight. Talk to one another. Communicate with the driver. Those earphones, you can see them around their ears. They're talking to the driver directly. You can see the smoke barreling out of that left front brake.
Got to be braked, yeah.
While he is sitting there, we have a new race leader, Nigel Mansell.
What an absolutely astounding, devastating, and disappointing moment. There is one of the Ferraris. It looked like it was Johansson, looked like a white helmet. Mansell leads this race. Remember that he has yet to come in for a pit stop. His closest adversary, or at least seemingly so, Alain Prost, has already been in for a pit stop. Mansell, we anticipate, will be coming in. Nelson Piquet is still in this race. He's still got a shot at it. But it's just astounding, John. I am almost speechless that that Benetton BMW car did not exit from that pit area after that pit stop.
I am speechless.
Well, how about the active leader in poles? Among these people, is it Teo Fabi, Ayrton Senna, René Arnoux, Alain Prost, or Nelson Piquet? And Card, the guy who has had the pole the most times in Formula One.
There we have Terry Boutsen coming into the pits. I think this might be more than a routine pit stop. He has a great deal of smoke coming out of the turbocharger there. They're not shooting any extinguisher on it. They're going to take the bonnet off that car. We have a little bit of a fire there. You can see Alan Harrison trying to extinguish it, and just down the pit road from him, we have a very sad Austrian driver sitting there, Berger. He just had his whole life has to be passing in front of him every time he hears a car going by. Mentioned at the beginning of this race, our spies, that he may be moving to McLaren next year to take up the spot of Keke Rosberg. Also, a very strong rumor is that he's going to Ferrari. So, of course, in Monza, hopefully we'll get the exact data on that. But right now, everyone's moving all over. You see the brake on sign there on your far left of the screen. That's the team manager. These drivers are so excited when they come into the pit. Sometimes they forget that they must hold the brake while the tires are being changed, with those tires being, the nuts being pulled off of those tires. That must be in a brake condition for the nuts to come loose. But anyway, he has certainly had plenty of time. The bonnet is going back on. At least we'll be able to see what Gerhard Berger can do after this very lengthy pit stop.
With 26 laps completed, Nigel Mansell leads this race in the Williams Honda, as he has so many times this year. He has led more laps than any other driver in 1986. Alain Prost is second. His teammate Keke Rosberg is third, and René Arnoux was being shown as in fourth position. Nelson Piquet, somewhat surprising that that's all the closer he is to the front, is now fifth. Stefan Johansson was being shown as sixth, and here comes Nigel Mansell into the pits, back with the top nine after this.
Well, he's our race leader. One side of the car is finished. Looking at that right rear, but it's still a quick one. Well, 11 seconds. They were in the 7-second zone there until they had trouble with that right rear. And Nigel Mansell, I don't think he's going to be in the leading position when he comes out. Let's see where Prost is.
Right, watch for Alain Prost. It'll be that bright red McLaren orange and white. We don't see him. He's either gone past, or Nigel comes out considerably ahead of Alain. We don't see him at all. There he is on the course. Difficult to tell from that angle if it's past the pit road or not. I believe that it is, John. I think that Prost has held on to the number one position. Following down the top nine, we do not have the top 10. Johansson would be sixth. Alan Jones is seventh. Michele Alboreto eighth. And Terry Boutsen, before he dropped out, he was in ninth position.
We don't know if he's out for sure at the moment, Larry, but it looks fairly desperate to me. He was still sitting in the car. We said Berger was on his way back out, and as soon as we said that, they took the rear bonnet off the car again. So Gerhard Berger is still in the pits. I believe we have not had any indications. One of the frustrating things sitting here in a broadcast booth in Connecticut, but we do believe that Prost is in the lead. When they went to him on camera, he was definitely on the back section of this very fast Österreich ring when Mansell was just coming out of the pits. So I would say that there has to be at least a quarter of a lap difference between them.
It's pretty amazing that Alain is that far ahead, because the pit stop was actually 2 seconds slower. And there comes René Arnoux. That appears to be too slow for a tire stop.
Well, that's another Renault-powered car. He's pointing back to the engine. Renault all the weekend long has had a misfire, a chronic misfire problem. It looks like they may have gotten some bad electrics with the whole batch of motors. And René Arnoux, and just right to the maximum, to the outside there. You saw him look in his mirrors, and just for an instant there, a millisecond, he may have lost concentration. He's coming up on the Haas Ford-powered car is Jonesy, just kind of, well, wait on it. There's a straightaway just past this corner, then you can go by. But please, I don't want to lose any more time at this than I need to.
I can tell you Jones is pretty good. Leaving the racetrack at Hungary last week, I followed Alan Jones for a while, John. He's very good at getting through traffic and trying to work his way around. We call them gendarmes. I guess better not call them that in Hungary, but he knows his way around traffic, I'll tell you that. John, just a comment about the Benetton cars and about their lack of reliability. It's really reared its ugly head again here today. Teo Fabi, going into today's race, had failed to finish 8 of the last 9, or 6 in a row. That number is now 7. Berger had DNF in 6 of the last 8 races, and here comes Nelson Piquet, pointing to the right front, obviously in for a tire change, and apparently he wants them to really give close attention to that. No, it's not a tire change at all. There is something unroutine about this stop. The steering wheel comes off, and Nelson Piquet, who has won the last 2 Formula One races, looks like he's retiring.
Well, they're going to push the car out of the pit lane. They may want to do a little bit of work on it, but whenever you see Nelson Piquet getting out of a car, you know that it's usually terminal. He does not like to get out of the car and get back into it. And there you see Berger back on the circuit, and he is going certainly what looks like regular race speed to me. Unfortunately, he had to lose a good 6, 8, possibly 10 laps in the pits, but he certainly will be able to circulate here on a quick basis and possibly pick up 1 or 2 points. Prost, Mansell, Rosberg, Alboreto, the Italian, looking forward to Monza, of course, driving the Ferrari. That will be his most important race of the year in 3 weeks' time.
Somewhat reminiscent, as we have completed 29 laps of a year ago for Michele Alboreto. John, this race last year was the Ferrari's high water mark. Remember, he came into this race about the same time of the season. He was leading the point standings. He was having a run of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place finishes, and he looked like he was the favorite to win the World's Championship, but it certainly hasn't developed that way this year.
Well, he finished 3rd here last year, and right now Stefan Johansson in the other Ferrari is also in a point-scoring position, I believe, and it could be another good race for Ferrari. They are trying to fine-tune the cars for fast circuits. Of course, Monza, again, being a very fast circuit, and that is the next race, their most important race, once again. And also, Ferrari must do something at the end of this event to try and raise the spirits of the Ferrari fans. There's usually 50,000 Ferrari fans in Austria, but because Ferrari is not doing so well, they figure that that has dropped to 20,000.
Ayrton Senna has had the most poles this year, but who among the active drivers has had the most career poles? Back with that right after this. There's the leader, Alain Prost, speaking about the active driver with the most career poles. That's a hint. No, it's not the one. He's got 16. René Arnoux, interestingly enough, has 18. Senna's total of 6 this year gives him a grand total of 13. Today's pole setter, Teo Fabi, only has 2. But among all the active drivers, the man with the most poles, Nelson Piquet. He's got 20.
Yeah, it's easy to do when you have the statistical Marlboro book in front of you there. You know.
Oh, no, this is off of memory. I remembered where I wrote it down this morning before I came into the race.
There was a shot of Mr. Prost. Here we have the fastest lap being set, and the car getting a little bit sideways. 1 minute, 30.4 seconds, 236 kilometers. Very quickly. We'll try and figure that out for you exactly, but it's extremely quick, near on 160 miles an hour, I think.
Just a comment, the last turn that Berger negotiated, I saw a car off to the side, and it looked amazingly like a Williams. Could that have been Nigel Mansell? That we don't know. We're not at the circuit. They're not documenting that story, but that car looked amazingly like the Wonder Bread wrapper painted Williams, the red, white, blue, and red.
Well, we'll try and pick that up the next circulation around the circuit. We did, while we were in break, we did not see anyone go off there, and the cameras did not pick it up, so we'll have to look for that just out of the chicane, I believe it was, Larry, as Gerhard Berger goes from absolute ecstasy to a broken heart here at his home circuit. Rene Arnoux, we thought he had a slow pit stop there, but he's back out on the circuit. He was pointing to his engine cowling when he came in, so whatever they did, they fixed it quickly. The Haas-powered Ford, they did not feel that this circuit was doing too well as far as their car setup goes. The Ford being very adapted to street circuits, slower circuits. That is a Williams sitting off to the side there. That might be where PK may have gone. Well, we'll just have to try and get some information. Again, this is one of the frustrating things, sitting 5,000 miles away from the circuit.
PK may have gone back out and had a breakdown out on course, but Mansell certainly is now within sight of Alain Prost. There is Keke Rosberg, who is, of course, Prost's teammate, and Keke was in third as long as Mansell was out on course. But if Mansell has dropped out, and again, we're just speculating, if Mansell has dropped out, that would move Keke to second. Now we see on the graphics it's showing Keke in second, but it also showed that Nigel was in third. So a little bit of a question as to what is going on in the Williams camp, at least up to this point. You know, John, while we watch this race, we are right in the midst of one of the biggest ESPN auto racing weekends of the year. It started out Thursday night with the USAC Regional Midgets at the Indianapolis Speedrome. A race, of course, that features the likes of Matt McClellan and Rich Vogler and that lady who won, and that is Mansell. That is definitely Nigel Mansell. You can see the red on the front of the nose of the car. Nigel Mansell, uncharacteristically for 1986, has dropped out of this race, and Mansell is in a relatively safe position, but I would feel a lot more comfortable, John, if they moved that car just a little further away from the circuit.
Well, as you can see, it is right in the exit of a very fast sweeping left-hander there, and they should try and move it at least closer to the guardrail. These race cars somehow have a magnetism to them. If anyone goes off, they seem to hit what's ever sitting there, and unfortunately hitting another race car instead of a guardrail that is designed to absorb a great deal of energy has never proven too healthy for either machinery or drivers. Very quickly here, we have some information from the Oostenrijk ring. Fabi over-revved the engine. We saw him screaming past his teammate, and it did cost him a bit by over-revving that motor and dropping him out of the race. Terry Boutsen out with the turbo. Berger came in and he had to change plugs. Now we'll have to see if that was a bad plug to start out with, or if his plugs are oiling up. If his plugs are oiling up, about the same position again, you may see him coming in for another pit stop, as we saw a picture of Alain Prost. Jackie Stewart likes to call Alain Prost the little frog. None of us have the nerve to call him that, but when you're a good friend, I guess you're allowed to call him the little frog. And Jackie Stewart is not with us, as you see the top three: Prost, Rosberg, Alboreto. Jackie Stewart is up grouse shooting in Scotland, back to his homeland for this weekend.
Alain Prost, you just had the feeling, and we all took an informal little poll here this morning as to whom we thought would win the race. And, you know, Alain hasn't had the marquee headlines in the last 3 or 4 races, but the guy has been so consistent over the past 4 or 5 seasons in Formula One racing. You just had the feeling deep down inside that he would do for one of those picture-perfect races that he is capable of doing.
To give you a little bit of a rundown, of course, Prost is first. Keke Rosberg from Finland second. Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, who you just saw go flashing by there, third. Rene Arnoux, the Frenchman, in the Ligier Renault-powered car, is fourth. Alan Jones we have as fifth in the American-entered Haas team. Christian Danner, sixth. Possibility of scoring his first points for the Arrows team. Tom Bay is seventh, and Stefan Johansson in the other Ferrari currently sitting in 8th place.
We were talking about how chock full of automobile racing this weekend is on ESPN. We mentioned Thursday night at the Speedrome. The ARS race was yesterday afternoon. We hope that you had an opportunity to see that American Racing Series race from Pocono. And today, the best that American racing has to offer. First, this afternoon at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. or 9:30 p.m. Pacific time will be the NASCAR Champion Spark Plug 400. Of course, that race will feature the likes of Bill Elliott, Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, and Tim Richmond, who has been, beyond the shadow of any doubt, the red hottest driver in all of NASCAR in recent weeks. Benny Parsons, a sometime commentator who has sat next to us many times, is on the pole for that stock car race. Later today, Tim Richmond, who's been so hot of recent, is on the outside pole. And then later today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, the Cart Domino's Pizza 500 from Pocono. Now, this is the final leg of Cart's Triple Crown, with the Indy 500 and the Michigan 500, of course, preceding it. Johnny Rutherford starting in the front row, but Michael Andretti on the pole with a brand new track record. Yes, another Indianapolis car track with a track record above 200 miles per hour. Michael, who has been Mr. Speed of Indianapolis cars, like Ayrton Senna has been Mr. Speed of Formula One this year, certainly will reign as one of the favorites as well. Bobby Rahal, the winner of this year's Indianapolis 500, and a guy to never count out, is the one who won the Pocono 500 a year ago, and the way to his comeback trail, Rick Mears. This is the Austrian Grand Prix of 1986. That man right there, Alain Prost, the current reigning world champion, leads this race. His teammate Keke Rosberg is in second, and Michele Alboreto runs in third. The Benetton cars did very well, but now one has dropped out and another has dropped significantly back. How about second place finishers among all the active drivers? Who has the most second place finishes? This one might be a giveaway. This is probably a pretty easy answer if you've been following Formula One for the last 3 or 4 years. Setting of the Austrian Grand Prix. The top 6, Alain Prost, Keke Rosberg, Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, one of its best performances of the year. Alan Jones is showing us 4th. His teammate Patrick Tambay is 5th, and Stefan Johansson, the other Ferrari, in 6th. So both Ferraris and the Haas Lola Fords doing well here, although everybody is a lap down to that man and his teammate Keke Rosberg.
McLaren superiority. Fantastic team that has developed over the last 4 years, when a young man came into its management who was started out as actually a Brabham mechanic. Ron Dennis is the gentleman who has brought this team up to its fantastic position of domination of Formula One. Here we see the rundown again. This is coming directly from Austria. Prost, Rosberg, Alboreto, Jones, Tambay, Johansson. But you have to give Ron Dennis, the leader of this organization, a great deal of credit. And also John Bernard, the designer that came along with Ron Dennis through these years and designed the P4 and built it into the race winner that it is. The rumor is that Ferrari is trying a very, very difficult task of pulling Bernard out of the McLaren team to help their somewhat sorry chassis in combining them with their very powerful engines to make a race-winning combination. Bernard said he will make his decision in 2 weeks, which is exactly what he said 2 weeks ago. So we are looking again in Monza for another announcement relative to John Bernard and the man who has directed McLaren to such a dominance of Formula One.
Another Bernie Ecclestone question to, or answer to a question to a question to an answer, or something along those lines. You just saw Michele Alboreto. He was in the shot momentarily, and what has now happened is that the McLaren cars of Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg have put everybody on the course at least 1 lap down. There is Alboreto. He runs competitively. He runs in third, following Patrick Tambay right there, and Tambay is also being shown in the top 6.
Tambay, and many people think he's more of an American than he is a Frenchman. A lovely American lady there, lives in Hawaii, and he has a house both in Hawaii with his family and a house in Switzerland where he lives during the racing season. Patrick Tambay coming from the University of Colorado, but right now he is getting a strong move being put on him by Stefan Johansson in the other Ferrari, and Patrick Tambay says, "Sorry, Steph, I know we're good friends, but my gosh, the Haas team can score some points here, and we want them to be as many points as possible." Stefan Johansson having a miserable 2 days of qualifying where he crashed 1 car, blew up 3 engines, but there he is looking on the inside again, and Patrick Tambay is certainly holding him at bay. We can see how this develops in the next several laps.
John, according to the graphics which we just recently saw, this is a battle for position on the racetrack, a battle potentially for third. And if so, as one of the Barclays arrows goes by, that one would be Christian Danner, who's still out there showing in the top 10. If so, this might be the battle for third position. By the way, the most second places in Tambe, once again squirming, most second places ever. It's a tie between both Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet. They've had 11.
Watch Johansson here on the inside under the braking, going up the hill. You can see that he's all set up at Tambe, being in the middle of the track. Once again, the hardest car to get around is one that's in the middle of the track, protecting his ground through the chicane. They're coming up on Christian Danner. You just saw Danner very quickly look into his mirrors. He knows that traffic is back there. He doesn't need any flags, but his BMW power car can certainly handle this threat going down the straightaway. He is not racing with those two cars, so he should let them by, but he is also trying to collect as much time as possible, and he's not going to delay that effort just to let them get by. And here we have Johansson coming up with the Ferrari power right against the Ford power. Ford saying that they did not feel they had as much power as they needed here, but they certainly are able to hold the Ferrari right, left, Stefan looking both ways.
And here comes Prost right up behind him, trying to put one more lap on both of these drivers who are being shown as one lap down. Here comes Prost moving up. It's Tambe, Alboreto, and Prost.
Johansson gets through there. You can see Tambe almost slowed. He may have missed a gear or something, but when it came right down to it, Tambe sailed through on the inside.
Well, it was a matter of checking the mirrors, probably seeing the leader, and as you say, John, Patrick may have missed a gear. That shot right there, you can see some of the crowd that's gathered here at the Austrian Grand Prix. It's cut back considerably this year. There are a number of factors for that. The Ferraris aren't as strong as they have been in years past. There was a Grand Prix not too far away, just a couple hundred kilometers a week ago in Hungary. And many of the people used to come to Austria every year, kind of blew their wad last week and went to Hungary for last week's Grand Prix. Well, Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg are the people leading this Grand Prix after this. .53 laps in a circuit that is conducive to 150 mile per hour average speeds. That means that the race goes by rapidly, and that's exactly what's happening right here. Alboreto, we saw him in that battle with Patrick Tambe just a few laps ago, is in third position. Alan Jones is fourth, Tambe is fifth, and Alboreto's teammate, Stefan Johansson, that is Michele right there. No, that's Stefan. You can tell by the helmet, the leaves on it. His nickname is the Little Leaf, and there's just a touch of the flag colors of his country, the blue and yellow, is right tucked down at the bottom of the helmet.
It's very hard to see Larry at 165 miles an hour. I have to give you credit on that.
Great eyes.
But here you see again, we're in kilometers, 238. Again, that's just right up there at 165 or so miles an hour. In practice, we had through the speed traps, the two fastest people were Derek Warwick and Patrese, both in the Brabham BMW powered cars at 344 kilometers an hour. I make that at 208 miles an hour here at the Österreich.
208 miles an hour. Remember, this is a road course where you're constantly shifting down to third, fourth, fifth, sometimes sixth gear on some cars. A lot of maneuvering going on in the race course. It's not exactly the same thing as whizzing around Pocono, as for instance, where you only have 3 corners to traverse, even though every one of them is unique and onto its own. It's very difficult to attain those kinds of speeds on a road course, and they're commonplace here at the Österreich Ring.
There goes Prost. Again, we seem to have that is not irregular braking on the part of these drivers. Our picture seems to be having a little bit of trouble in transmission through the Alps, up through the satellite and back down again. But Alain Prost doing what he does best, leading Grand Prix Formula One races, going by the Dutchman of Hoop Rottengatter, the tallest and heaviest man in Formula One. He's well over 6 feet 2 inches tall. They had to modify the dashboard of that West-sponsored Zach Speed so he could get his knees into the cockpit from Holland, Hoop Rottengatter. And you can see Berger is just eating these guys alive out there. He just blew by a picture of Keke Rosberg here in second place. Keke Rosberg from Finland. Berger, as you can see, just blowing by everyone he's come up against. It must be a terribly frustrating situation for him to know that he has that speed, that his pit stop was a 5 or 6 lap situation.
Well, for Rothengatter, whom you just saw Alain Prost put a lap on, got to be considered very successful today. He had only completed 9 laps all weekend prior to today, and now he's into the vicinity of 40 completed laps at racing speed. So for Hoog, it's a really good day. Well, this weekend was Nelson Piquet's birthday, but it looks like this is going to turn out to be a McLaren celebration if things continue the way they are right now. There is the Ligier of René Arnoux, who has had a number of top 6, certainly a number of top 10 races this year. Genzani going by. There's Berger again, who's out there turning in the fastest laps. Arnoux. Here comes the number 2 McLaren of Keke Rosberg. He's second in the race.
Arnoux is 6th in the World Championship with 14 points so far scored during this season, and he has worked hard for every single one of them. The Ligier team has announced next year they will be using the new Alfa Romeo engine with only 8 laps to go here in Austria. So we'll have to see how that chassis makes the switch from the very successful Renault power plant to the brand new design Alfa Romeo F1 motor.
Well, just a note on Nigel Mansell, we have tracked down the reason for him pulling off course. It was an engine problem. So Nigel Mansell, who had finished like 8 races in a row, his skein of finishing races comes to an end. Among the career active drivers who has led the most kilometers, or miles if you're an American. Remember that Nigel Mansell has led the most this year. The answer right after this when we turn to the 1986 Austrian Grand Prix, where so far McLaren parade. The fastest man on the racetrack today, but he's not leading. He lost a number of laps in the pits, remember. Spark plug problems. There is Alain Prost. He has led the number of laps, the most number of laps, that is, today. Alain Prost, right up there where he has been so many times over the past season. Surprisingly, among all the active drivers, the man who has the 3rd highest total of leading laps is René Arnoux. He has led, make that leading miles, he has led 2,500 plus miles. But the guy who is way out in front is a man from Brazil, and it's not Ayrton Senna, so that kind of narrows it down, doesn't it, John?
Well, I think that's Piquet then from Brazil. Top 10. Of course, we have Prost from France, McLaren, and his teammate Keke Rosberg in 2nd. Michele Alboreto, the Italian, in 3rd. Jones, 4th.
Rosberg is slowing. I think it's Rosberg. It's one of the McLarens, John. Sorry to interrupt, but it looks like, no, that is Rosberg.
That is Rosberg. The number 2 is Rosberg. Again, coming out of that same corner. Again, we don't know if the fuel is beginning to slosh to one side, but he definitely slowed way down. You saw he did not get to his outer apex on that corner. We'll see if he comes into the pits just quickly here. We'll finish off. We have Stefan Johansson in 2nd. Ferrari is 5th. Tom Bay in the other Haas is 6th. Danner is in 7th, looking for that point, trying to get up to 6th with Rottengatter. 8th. Berger back up to 9th place, if you can believe that. Genzani 10th.
This racetrack has had a history of surprising results. There have been a lot of unusual winners here, dating back to 1969 when the track first came onto the Formula One World Championship schedule. Ronnie Peterson has won here, although Ronnie was in a hot streak when he won here in the Lotus. Jacques Lafitte has won here. Elio De Angelis, the late Elio De Angelis, took his Lotus to victory. Prost, that's not so surprising. He has won twice. And Niki Lauda back in 1984, his World's Championship year, won here. But a March car has won here. John Watson back in 1976 took the Penske car, John, which I think was the only Formula One victory ever for a Penske car to a win here. Alan Jones, he won a couple times back in the 70s also.
Well, it's a circuit that has been very dramatic relative to retirements, and at the moment we only have 10 cars out of 26 starters being able to hang on here in Austria. The reason for that is because of the tremendously high speeds. These cars are in 5th or 6th gear, depending on the top gear in their gearbox. Brabham 7-speed. So a very long period of time, and that engine is screaming down that back straightaway at well over 200 miles an hour for several seconds, and that is where things can let go. Gearboxes can let go. Drive shafts can let go. Suspensions can even let go if they hit a curve or something at that type of speed. On the braking, as you see the Michele Alboreto having a duel there with the Ligier, I don't believe that is for a position. I think Arnoux is just coming through the field of him. It has to be correct, but we have always seen a great number number of retirements here in Austria.
K.K. Rosberg was in the top 5 in the morning's practice session, which most observers feel will give you the truest indication of how things will unfold in the race as Johansson's Ferrari goes by. Nigel Mansell was the fastest this morning. He's dropped out. Patrese was second fastest. He's gone. Berger, several laps down, was third. K.K. fourth. Fabi, he's gone. He was the 5th fastest. Piquet was the 6th fastest. He's gone. And then Alain Prost. So maybe it's not a matter of Alain Prost being the fastest one today. Maybe his most closest pursuers have simply dropped by the wayside. But at any rate, it's his race at this point. Coming down to the final stages now, the Austrian Grand Prix. That is Alain Prost, and John, he looks slow.
He looks very slow coming through that chicane. He was definitely not under power. Got to explain to you about these fuel cells. They are filled with a honeycomb type solution so that the fuel is not going to burst out if it is ruptured and therefore become a greater fire hazard. And there's the number 2 car, Keke Rosberg, pulling off, and we saw him slowing through one of the corners where the fuel would be sloshed, ripping his oxygen tube out, his drink tube out. He is running across the road. We saw Keke Rosberg do this 2 other races this year. Certainly in San Marino he did it. Keke Rosberg lying second here in Austria. And all of a sudden he is out of this race. Also the German Grand Prix, he was out. He still scored points, but on the last lap he was out of fuel. The question is, extra power from the tag engines, is it costing them economy? That's exactly what happened in Germany. Keke Rosberg making it back to the paddock. We'll try and get our spotters out there to find what happened, but for sure Keke Rosberg very upset. Well, we have to watch Prost to see if he's having the same problem. He definitely was slowing, coming through that chicane. Like I was saying, there's a honeycomb solution in there that lets this fuel get caught up in there, and it can be drugged to one side of the tank and therefore not allowed to fill the pickup zone. So we'll have to see what happens. This is up into the chicane. This is where he slowed before, just around his right hand and into the chicane. Well, he looks a bit
normal this time.
Looks under power there, but he's not using, well, he was using all the track. Let's see what happens. But usually when Keke runs out of gas, Prost runs out of gas about a lap and a half after.
Without the benefit of the Olivetti computer, we do not have an exact count on laps as we bring this race to you from our studios in Bristol, Connecticut. And by the way, with 36 points still available after today's race, when Keke Rosberg dropped out of today's race, although it was a foregone conclusion that mathematically, they talk about this in baseball, that mathematically eliminated Keke Rosberg from any possibility of being the world's champion for 1986. It's now down to 4, but then again, it's been down to 4 all year long.
Gerhard Berger started this race with great expectation to carry his front row position into the winner's circle, and that was dashed away by a bad spark plug and a 5 or 6 lap stop in the pits. Gerhard Berger, one of the youngest drivers in Formula 1, one of the most deserving, certainly one of the gentlemen of Formula 1, very easily approachable for interviews. We have always given great possibility and high ratings to Gerhard Berger, and when we go to interview him, he says that he remembers that. He was some of the people who gave him attention when he was way down the grid, struggling along, not even in Formula 1. So Gerhard Berger, one of the finest gentlemen and drivers in Austria.
Austrian TV, of course, providing the television pictures that you're looking at right now. There is Gerhard Berger really sailing around this racetrack.
Blowing past
with no chance to win. Stefan Johansson well up into the top 6. And John, if this fuel drama continues to unfold and continues to claim victims, we might still end up with an unusual winner. It looks like Alain Prost, but the Ferrari is up close. You can see the flags. Those look like Ferrari flags that are flying there. Yeah, they definitely are Ferrari flags as Johansson runs around this 3.7-mile course.
Well, those flags are being waved in the hands of Austrians, because what's happening is Gerhard Berger, the local boy, is going to try and take Alain Prost, the leader of this race. We said he was going to come out of the pits like like gangbusters, and he has. He's proving something here that he may not be on the same lap of that leader, but look out, Prost, here we come. We're showing you what we can do when things are running right. This is fantastic.
Well, John, I'll tell you, with all the retirements, he may be running in 6th position. As you say, Berger is out there showing everything that he has. Now, Prost has got to just move over. He's got this race in the bag. He'll move over, let Gerhardt go by, and let Gerhardt have his day in the sun. And Gerhardt is really picking him up and laying him down. I mean, Edwin Moses would be jealous of his performance.
Who's Edwin Moses? What does he drive?
Yes, right.
Anyway.
Whom we ironically ran into in the restaurant in Hungary last week. We were all quite surprised. We were sitting there having a very pleasant dinner, and the bearded wonder walked by. Great hurdler. Many feel obviously the best in the history of the game.
Through that chicane, it looks like Prost is not having any fuel problems. Possibly Keke Rosberg went out with some other problem, because if it was a fuel problem, Prost may be doing would have had the same type of situation developing in his fuel management system. But right now, Prost does not have any challenge from behind. He has to hold on to his lead. This can be a problem because of concentration. A lot of drivers would rather have someone to chase or someone chasing them, because you have to maintain that 100% of concentration. 1 second of misconcentration puts you down the road 100 yards at 200 miles an hour. So 1 heartbeat loss of concentration can certainly cause a dramatic situation. When you're out there leading like this, you have to really push yourself hard into that mental situation of 100% effort.
John, more importantly for Alain Prost, today's result, should he be able to finish this race and pick up 9 points, his 3 closest adversaries in the World's Championship points battle will get nothing. And so important for Alain, because he's only picked up 1 point in a total of the last 2 races. In Germany, when he ran out of gas, never even crossed the finish line. He got out of the car and tried to push it across, Ralph De Palma style. Remember the 1912 Indianapolis 500-mile race? Well, he only ended up getting 5th in that race. Prost did. Checker flag coming up, and Alain Prost has won. Alain Prost has picked up the 9 points, giving him a total of 53, moving him just 2 behind Nigel Mansell, who picks up no points this day. Senna gets no points, nor does Piquet.
Very quick finish. I'm sorry we were caught a little bit unaware, but that was certainly the checkered flag coming out there. As you see, the car is coming past this beautiful setting. We had some thunder clouds building up on one end as the national cameras go to the national hero, Gerhard Berger.
Yeah, it really was a glorious day, and had there not been just that moment in the pits, and sitting where we're sitting, it's impossible to tell whether or not it was. Look at the crowd. Flags from around Europe, around the world make that, waving, saluting Gerhard Berger. A very appreciative and a very knowledgeable crowd here today, recognizing what Gerhard Berger has done, and how close, had it not been for just a couple of seconds in the pit area where something went wrong. Don't know, I was about to say whether or not it was a driver error or a mechanical failure, but everything seemed to be in order until they dropped the car down off the jacks and it was time to accelerate out, and the car just wouldn't move. But we're checking with our spotters in Austria right now, and Gerhard, whoa, off his line, giving it all he's got right down to the very last corner. We think that he got a 6th position. Well, no, there's the top 6. Prost, Alboreto, Johansson, Jones, and Tambay, both Haas cars picking up points, and Christian Danner in the USF&G Barclays Arrows getting his first points of the year.
That's a great thrill for any driver to get their first points, and let's hope it continues for the young German driver, Christian Danner.
So the 1986 Austrian Grand Prix, as you see the rest of the field being read out for you on the screen, is history, and Alain Prost has won once again. This is his 3rd win of the 1986 season. Remember that Nigel Mansell continues to lead in that category with 4. More after this. Well, the color of the day is red. As you can see, they look like teammates. They're not all teammates, although there are 2 up there. Stefan Johansson was on the far right. Michele Alboreto was on your left. And the winner, Alain Prost, was in the center of the victory podium. Alboreto was 2nd, Johansson 3rd. The Haas cars of Alan Jones and Patrick Tambay were 4th and 5th, respectively. And Christian Danner earning his first points of the 1986 season of his career, John?
Yes, the first points of his career, actually. And so a welcome welcome thrill for him for sure. Not only was the podium red, the Marlboro color, but it was also, here we have the point standings actually. Nigel Mansell 55, Prost 53, Senna 48, PK 47, Rosberg 19, and with 14 points each, Lafitte and Arnoux. That certainly is a dramatic situation to be going into the Monza Italian Grand Prix. Also, as I was saying, Goodyear did hold on. They fought back the Pirelli tire battle that we saw in qualifying. I think Gerhard Berger would have won possibly, or certainly put on a very good show for Pirelli if he would not have had that oiled plug that caused the very, very long pit stop.
John, what a dramatic Formula One season. Can you recall a season where with just 4 races to go, there are 4 drivers that are virtually in a tie? Yeah, there's a ranking, first, second, third, and fourth, but everybody is basically in the same situation. It really is a tie with 4 races to go and 36 points yet up for grabs.
Exactly, Larry. I have seen it this close, but I haven't seen it this close with the capabilities of the teams and the drivers to go out there and win at any time, at any race.
That's a good point. We have seen every team and every driver among that top 4 having moments of glory this year when it seemed like, well, Mansell has become invincible. Well, Senna has become invincible. Well, Prost has become invincible. Now it really is anybody's game. The 1986 Austrian Grand Prix, which has provided some historically surprising winners, wasn't a big surprise today. It was Prost. And as Simon and Garfunkel once said, the crowd must be restless in anticipation. The Italian and Ferrari flags are going to be a-waving and very excited about the Ferraris coming home. Later today, Jack Arute, Dick Bergen, and Dr. Jerry Punch continue one of the busiest days ever in auto racing on ESPN, the NASCAR Champion Spark Plug 400 live from the Michigan International Speedway in the Irish Hills of Michigan, featuring people like Bill Elliott, last year's winner, Tim Richmond, currently the hottest driver on the NASCAR trail, Darrell Waltrip, and of course people like Bobby Allison and Terry Labonte, who are in the points race, as well as Benny Parsons, an occasional ESPN commentator. Then later this afternoon at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, the final leg of CART's IndyCar Triple Crown. Michael Andretti, with a brand new track record in excess of 204 miles per hour, sits on the pole. Johnny Rutherford right outside of him, and of course Ray Hall will be one of the favorites, the winner of this year's Indianapolis 500, as well as the winner of last year's Pocono 500, Rick Mears. Today's Austrian Grand Prix from the Österreich Ring in Austria has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radial, built for you to take on the road. And by Budweiser, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you.